This next story almost doesn't even require doing because it's so obvious and it has always been obvious. But Republican Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is now saying that even though he said it would have been wrong to fill a Supreme Court seat during Barack Obama's last year of his second term back in 2016, he actually would fill a hypothetical Supreme Court opening next year, 2020, which, by the way, is the last year of Donald Trump's presidential term. He would not suggest, if there is a vacancy next year, that we wait for the results of the 2020 election so that we can let voters have a say in the direction that they want the Supreme Court to go in. Words almost don't even have the ability to express the brazen and sort of vile political nature of this entire conversation. But I do think we should have the discussion so we can file it and refer back to it when we need to in the future. And I'm sure that we're going to need to refer back to it in the future. So remember that back in 2016, right-wing Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia died. This created a vacancy on the Supreme Court. Barack Obama was the president at the time, and Barack Obama nominated Merrick Garland. Now, Merrick Garland was no far-left guy. He was a centrist jurist and completely uncontroversial in relation to the status quo, anyway, in basically every way. The Senate has to confirm Supreme Court nominees. Mitch McConnell was in charge of the Senate in the same way that he's in charge now, and Mitch McConnell blocked it. They never even had confirmation hearings for Merrick Garland. McConnell at the time said, well, you know, it's the last year of Barack Obama's term. We don't know if a Democrat or a Republican is going to win in November of 2016. So it would be appropriate before we take up any nominations for the Supreme Court, we should let voters have a say about the direction they want the country going and let the winner of the 2016 election choose Antonin Scalia's replacement. Now, we knew that it was horse manure back then. Presidents are presidents for the full 4 years of their term. The last year is just one of the 4 years of those 4-year terms. And there is plenty of historical precedent for Supreme Court confirmations in the 4th year of a president's term. We knew at the time, if it was a Republican president in 2016, if the nomination had been to replace Antonin Scalia with a right-wing judge selected by a Republican president, Mitch McConnell would have immediately held those confirmation hearings. They would have filled the seat, and that would have been it. Now, at a Kentucky local Chamber of Commerce event, Mitch McConnell was asked, this was yesterday or the day before, someone in the audience said, should a Supreme Court seat become available next year in 2020, what is your position going to be about filling that spot? Meaning 2020 is going to be the last year of Donald Trump's term. You said back in 2016, no Supreme Court confirmations in the last year of a presidential term. What happens if the same situation comes up in 2020? And McConnell simply says, after sipping his iced tea during the event, oh, well, we would just fill it. Check out the video online. I don't want to play it because it's from a local news station. And even though I know that it would be well within our fair use rights to play the video, local news stations are insanely aggressive with their copyright claims. And I just don't want to deal with it because it's bad for the show. But what he said is, oh, we would fill that seat. Now, if you really want to see the deep depths of this sort of post hoc logic that these Republicans are applying, just listen to the explanation that was given by Mitch McConnell's spokesperson for this double standard. Media outlets rightly went to Mitch McConnell's office and they said, hold on a second. Mitch McConnell did one thing during Barack Obama's last year of his term, and he says that he's going to do something totally different, hypothetically, during the last year of Donald Trump's term. How does he explain this obvious political gamesmanship? And David Popp, who is McConnell's spokesperson, said, no, there's a difference between 2016 and 2020. In 2016, Democrats had the White House, but Republicans had the Senate. In 2020, Republicans will have the White House and Republicans will also have the Senate. That is not an explanation, or in a sense, like it's an explanation. But what he's saying is, oh, the reason that we would do it differently in 2020 than 2016 is because we can. And we control not only the Senate, but also the White House. So it's likely that we would be in favor of whoever Donald Trump would nominate in 2020. But the sickest part of it is that the entire room, or a lot of it, laughed when Mitch McConnell said, oh, we would confirm that person. They're all in on the joke. Like, it's not even something that they're hiding. Everybody knew in 2016 that McConnell's explanation was a dishonest one. And we knew that if the same thing happened under a Republican president, they would just confirm the Supreme Court pick. And lots of Americans, I mean, Republicans too, they all understood that that was the game being played, and they're fine with it. Like, it's some kind of funny joke. And meanwhile, remember those people who in the lead up to the 2016 election, people on the left were saying, if it's not whoever I really want, I don't care if it's Hillary or Trump. It's basically the same thing if it's Hillary or Trump. Trump's Supreme Court picks tell us why it's not the same. And we will now have a conservative Supreme Court for a long time, an even longer time if Donald Trump gets reelected in 2020. And this is why Republicans are winning on the issue of the courts. Republicans decades ago decided, they recognized the importance of the courts, and they realized whether it's the Supreme Court, whether it's federal judges, whatever, we need to focus on this. And the Republican Party has focused on it, and they're winning hugely on it. And when you have a contingent of the left, which said, Supreme Court, who cares? Hillary, Trump, they're both just too centrist for me. They're both too much to the right for me. I don't care. This is the result, okay? The bed has been made, and now we're sleeping in it. And mostly it's the blame of the right, but there's a little bit of the left that also has to take some of the blame here. And this is exactly the result that we predicted. Let's hope that Donald Trump doesn't get a Supreme Court vacancy to fill next year. And then let's hope that someone else is voted in November of 2020. Make sure you're following the show on Instagram, where we will be polling the audience on an issue related to the Supreme Court. Instagram.com/David Pakman Show. And while you're there, follow me as well. I'm David.Pakman on Instagram.